Ah, hello. Welcome everyone. This is my entry for the Meatly Jam. I thought I was being rather clever because I was going to do a Meatly adventure game starring all the fabulous characters from the comic, and I was going to do it in AGS Adventure Game Studio, which is my, engine of choice because being a non-programmer, this is quite an easy way to create an adventure game. So the first thing I did on Friday was to, define all the characters. Here's the main character. As you can see, this is the Meatly, and he can walk and talk. I also have the Downfish, who is not currently in the game at all. I have the Idea Fairy. I have this artist douchebag. Um, I have a guy with a little American flag. I have the monocle guy. I have the serial killer, and I have the Slender Man, who also does not actually appear in the game. So what happened was that I, on Friday, got everything together along with a bunch of cute little backgrounds. You can see here are the rooms that I put together. There's a garden path, there's a circle, there's a waste yard, and there's a vast yard, and there's a toilet yard. And I figured since I have all of these things defined and I have all of these characters, all that's left to do is really just do the fun part, which is to go in and define all the hotspots and write some snarky little comments for the different hotspots, and then the game will sort of make itself. At least that's what I had in mind. So I started out putting characters in various rooms. I created some dialogues, as you can see here. There's dialogue for the Idea Fairy that you meet early on in the game. And I figured with a setup like this, how can things possibly go wrong? I mean, the setup is that you have a game that you want to make, and the Idea Fairy shows up and teleports you to a kind of surrealist whatever the hell this is supposed to be. And then you walk around, meet these interesting characters, and they all give you some idea for what kind of game you want to make. And then you come back to the Meatly world, which is this white background, and then you're off. So unfortunately, as you are about to find out, the Idea Fairy in real life left me rather early in development. So I had all this fun Friday setting up this whole shebang, picking out a nice fonts, picking out all these backgrounds and such, which I'll take you through in a minute. And then I naively thought that the game would sort of write itself. It did not. Anyway, let's hit F5 here and test out the game. Oh, I see I already have one running. Excuse me. There we go. And now this is the screen, and up here on top is supposed to be the inventory window, which you can scroll left and right. It doesn't actually do anything because there are no inventory objects in the game so far, or at all. And the little Nintendo icon over here brings up the quick screen with massively oversized text, because I didn't get around to doing anything about that. Anyway, the game is controlled with this fancy little mouse cursor. As you can see, we can walk the Meatly around his white nondescript world. And once you hover your mouse over different objects, a little bit of text at the bottom will show up telling you what the object is. Right-clicking will examine, and left-clicking will do something. So let's right-click, and he says, this is my computer. I really should do something with it, which is kind of ironic at this point. So let's just try and work on the game. Well, poop, I'm not in the mood. Back when I wrote this, I thought this was going to be hilarious because I really was in the mood to make a game. And then the Idea Fairy shows up, and the irony just keeps piling on. Fear not, I am the Idea Fairy. I have come to help you get your inspiration back. Well, where the hell were you in real life, you little floaty dick? How do you plan to do that? Well, boom, behold. This is a door. This is a crudely drawn door in Photoshop, obviously. He just basically tells you to walk through that door, and your inspiration will follow. Beyond this door lies your inspiration. It does. So what are you waiting for? Well, what the hell am I waiting for? Go forth and seize your inspiration. So if I try to use the computer again, he says I haven't found my inspiration yet, and this line of dialogue will never change. In fact, once we leave this room, we will never come back, and we will never visit the Idea Fairy again. Now, you could talk to the Idea Fairy, and there's actually a whole dialogue tree. How did you just appear out of nowhere? Are you a fresh new type of psychosis? can't you just give me an idea for my game? And what lies beyond yonder doorway? And he doesn't actually tell you anything other than go through the doorway. So let's move through the doorway, shall we? Boom! We are now in a rather nice garden thing. All the backgrounds from this point on are actually photographs that I've taken over the years in different locations. This one is actually a cemetery which is lying behind the office that I work on in my day job. Yeah, I walk through a cemetery every morning going to work, and it's actually a rather nice cemetery, and you can't actually see that it is a cemetery. So for all intents and purposes right now, this is just a garden. There's a couple of hotspots defined here that don't actually do anything. There are trees. There's a bin. The bin doesn't actually do anything. There's a hedge. It's a splendid looking hedge. It doesn't actually do anything. And there are two exits, one to the north and one to the east. Let's just go to the east for a bit. Here's another bit. There's a hedge here, and as you can see, there's a little blue patch down here. So I put in a hotspot that says blue patch. It's an hot discoloration. If you click on it, you'll walk over and say that it is nothing useful. Well, that's fantastic. So let's just keep walking inside this rather nice looking circle, which I suspect the topiary designer for that cemetery had been watching The Shining for a bit. Now we're in this massive stone circle with a little hedge in the middle. No, there's no hotspot. There are a couple of hotspots over here where I'm not even sure these are actually gravestones in real life, but they are stones. And if I look at them, they have an inscription that says, "Here lies a great game idea. Sorry it wasn't yours," which is oddly unnerving, right? So if I keep walking to the right, eventually we will encounter a strange person who is labeled a non-suspicious looking guy. And looking a bit, he does look a bit suspect, and I can walk up and I can actually talk to this guy. Just bobs his head a bit because I basically just went and downloaded one of the Meat Lee's comics and just grabbed this guy out of the panel, and his animation is just his head bobbing up and down. I am making a game. Can you help me? One of those computer game things. Yep, one of those things. At this point, I was still, merrily writing away, thinking, right, well, something will organically develop. So I'm just going to put in all of these funny little responses. Funny, right? What's your game about? Well, it's about fluffy bunnies, plumbers, serial killers, introspective mood pieces. One of those with subtle metaphors. Like, one thing appears to be something, and then it's like, well, yeah, right, it's nothing like that. And basically, anything you can say here, Meat Lee will eventually say, well, that's not really what the game is about anyway. So I don't know what it's about. And basically, you can go through this entire dialogue tree if you want to. He doesn't actually do anything useful, obviously. He does have an idea for what kind of game I should do. He says something realistic, something tangible. You're right there. You see it from their eyes. Fear and anxiety. Of course, this dude's a serial killer, so he probably likes murder simulators. Or whatever gave you that idea. Thanks, you've been very helpful. No, you haven't really. I'm just gonna, what I'm gonna do is just quickly walk through the different screens of the game and show you where I had placed the different types of characters. And not really converse too much with them, because apart from the serial killer in the garden and another character who lies to the north here, I basically just didn't get around to filling in dialogue trees for anyone else. This is a rather messed up parking lot, which is actually a photo of a genuine parking lot somewhere behind my apartment building. This Patriot guy looks morose, and that's because when you talk to him, he just basically says that the state of games is not to his liking. And this was kind of where, this was the third dialogue tree I was writing, and this is kind of where I started giving up and going, I have no idea what you're actually supposed to do to complete this game. So from this point on, his conversation doesn't go anywhere, obviously, either. There are no other hotspots to click on the screen. From this point on, it's basically just walking around, looking at stuff, looking at very few defined hotspots, and basically giving up whenever you feel like you've accomplished what you're supposed to accomplish, which is nothing. This is actually a giant screen. This was a panorama shot I took at last year's Roskilde Festival in Denmark. And all of these backgrounds have been through Photoshop using a little effect that Photoshop has that's called cutout, which basically makes these sort of blobby vector looking like objects. We just passed the artist, who's a kind of a douchey fellow. Once we go further to the left, you can see tents in the background, and this is the sort of mess that you see on the 4th or 5th day of a music festival. It's a garbage heap. I'm sure I'd catch a number of interesting diseases if I were to sort through that with my bare hands, which is not far from the actual truth, to be honest. I casually skipped by the fancy little artist guy because he, like any other character from this point on, doesn't have anything to say. If I go north here, I will end up at the porta potty station at Roskilde Festival, and here's a fancy looking monocle guy who also has nothing to say. And this statue is actually, well, in the original shot there was actually a person standing there, but once you apply the cutout effect, it just turns into this amorphous blob looking thing. So in my mind that looked like a statue. And believe it or not, we are actually on the last screen. So what I would like you to imagine, dear viewer, is that on these multitude of fancy screens, there were any number of interesting head-scratching puzzles to solve, inventory items to pick up, conversations to have, and all sorts of fantastic merriment was to be had. Except that the blasted idea fairy kind of bailed on me yesterday. I mean, we started this Friday. Yesterday was Saturday, and I had an evening to myself to compose this, and it just went nowhere. And today is Sunday, and at this point I've just really thrown in the towel, and there is nothing I can do with this game in the allotted time that I have left to actually make something worthwhile playing. So yeah, this is basically it. The only thing I can do is go back to the garden path, and oh well, the game broke. That's might as well. Apparently there's a little bug in exiting the other room, so now I can't actually walk anywhere. Well, that's just as well. So let's click the little nice Nintendo icon and select quit. So what I, of course, wanted you to imagine was that this was a stellar piece of interactive fiction with fantastic graphics that didn't at all look like silly little mobile photos been thrown through a Photoshop mangler. As you can see, the Slender Man never made an appearance, and the Downfish never made an appearance. And if anyone out there has any idea of what this game is actually supposed to be about, or how you're supposed to accomplish the goal that the Idea Fairy sent you out on, let me know, because this could be a fun little adventure to complete. I've already got all the characters. I've got a couple of locations, and more locations can be added. This nice little surreal, semi-photo realistic, but not really, landscape could be kind of interesting. But as it is now, I'm just going to close the book on this failed little experiment of mine and be done with it. So there you have it. That's my submission for the Meatly Jam 2015. I will admit I had a lot of fun Friday night putting all these little bits and bits together. I had a less fun evening Saturday trying to actually work out how you're supposed to solve the game. And now it's Sunday, and I just feel like closing the chapter because it's 2:45 p.m. in Denmark, Danish time, and the jam is almost over, so there's really no point in going on. So what I'm going to do now is close the video. I leave you with this fabulous screen from a cyberpunkish 2001 Space Odyssey. Whatever the hell this is, Hall of Mirrors effects, and I'm going to stop. this now. So thank you for watching. I know I won't win, but at least I had fun participating. Thank you for watching.